So you want to make a crowd chant, huh? Maybe one that sounds like this?
Hey, let's go!
But wait, what's that? You're only one person? You don't have a full choir of people hiding in your home studio ready to sing a group chant at a moment's notice? Yeah, well, me neither. I made this whole effect using just my voice. And no, you don't have to have an entourage of people to get that crowd chant effect you've been looking for. With the power of some recording techniques and some AI vocalists, we can do this all by ourselves. Let me show you how. Recording technique number 1, lots of recording. So you're you and you're trying to emulate a bunch of different people chanting something all at once. It's gonna take some time, but we can make that happen. The first thing you'll need to do is record a ton of voices. This effect isn't gonna happen with just a couple of takes. We're talking like 50 takes. The small discrepancies and sonic differences between our different takes will give the illusion of a thicker sound. Check out the difference here between just 4 voices and 14 voices.
Hey, let's go! Hey, let's go!
I tried to keep my voice the same for each time I said the chant, but inevitably there are differences between the takes. Recording a mountain of voices is a great idea for getting started, but there are also some other techniques we can use to get better results. The second technique I'd recommend exploring is experimenting with the distance from your microphone. In a real recording, Joe Schmo is standing at a different distance than Schmo Joe, and the difference can be replicated in our recording process by just altering the distance we are away from the mic. Get some recordings close, get some recordings far, get some recordings upside down. The point is just to vary them. It's also important to know that the farther back from the microphone you stand, the more room noise will be introduced into the recording. That room noise can give a greater sense of that crowd chant realism we're striving for. I recommend doing this in a semi-treated room like what I have here, because without acoustic panels on the wall, your microphone will probably pick up too much room noise, which makes it harder to process your vocals later. I'll use the same commission that I'm working on and record a solid 10 more vocal takes where I vary the distance between recordings.
Hey, let's go! Hey, let's go! Hey, let's go!
That brings us to step number 3. Instead of switching the distances between the mics this time, we're switching the mics themselves. This step isn't as important as the first 2 and can be skipped if need be, but it can give some better results. Just like with varying distances, changing the sonic characteristics of your voice by changing the microphone will add greater depth. You can also rinse and repeat steps 1 and 2 on a different mic to add some more beef to your stew. I first use a TLM 103, and then to contrast this, I'm going to use a dynamic microphone, the SM7B. I'll record 10 more voices, and then we'll see what it sounds like.
Hey, let's go! Hey, let's go! Hey, let's go!
Okay, on to step numero 4. This is where your crowd chant is gonna get interesting. Why? Well, because we're gonna use the power of AI to help us along the way. Okay, so the software that I've actually decided to use is called kits.ai for this. And what's cool is you can sign up for a free account and you can use up to 1 voice for free if you're trying to do this on your own. You also get to input up to 5 files here, which is perfect for our needs because we're gonna upload all 5 of them at one time. We'll choose the voice that we want to use. In this case, we've chosen a female French pop. Who knows what the hell this is based off of. Then after we click that, we can download each of our outputs here. And to download these, we'll record them on SoundPaste.
Hey, let's go.
Stop it right there. And then we'll add it into our DAW here. Bada bang, bada boom. Really like the voice of this so much, but we can try a different voice and see if it sounds good. What about female talk rap? Sure.
Hey, let's go.
That's much better. We're gonna actually download this one because we've already done the first one. So we'll go sound, paste, record.
Hey, let's go.
Perfect. Now we can add this one in, sort of line it up. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'll do this with a few more female vocalists and see what we can get. All right, and this is what all of my AI vocalists sound like together. Doesn't sound amazing, but it does give a little bit different texture. Check it out.
Hey, let's go.
Now, AI vocalists do sound okay, but they're not nearly the same as getting a professional vocalist or just somebody else to throw in a different chant. You get a much better result by just recording someone live into a microphone. If you can just bug them for a second, then just come record a chant, and then there you go. It'll be much better. You can hear that these AI vocalists sound okay, but they sound super processed. They sound a little weird and just funky overall. And that's been my experience with AI vocalists. It was definitely worth the experiment. I'm gonna keep them in because it took me a little while to make them. And in the mix of everything, 5 vocals in 50 isn't gonna make so much of a difference. I can always turn them down later. Keep that in mind if you're wanting to use AI vocals. It's not perfect, but it does help. And on to the last step now, mixing and processing. Now it's time to mix all of these voices together as to make one cool-ass sounding chant. Much of the processing and mixing phase will be panning the shit out of these vocal tracks so that they fully encompass the listener in a wall of chanting sound. And of course, we'll balance the levels of our recordings. We will also do some slight compression and EQ to help everything fit in the mix. For panning, try to keep your sides balanced. For every voice you pan hard left, pan one hard right. If you have too many voices on one side, it might sound lopsided. Also, for balancing levels, just go with what feels right. I'd recommend keeping your good takes a little bit louder and keeping your bad takes more in the background. There's no right or wrong here, but because we've quartered so many voices, they're bound to blend together anyways. Once you've got your crowd chant about where you want it with panning and mixing, you can also add some plugins to bring it together. When working with this many voices, I like to group tracks together to make processing faster. I'll group all of the tracks together for this example. Normally, I'll start with EQ on it to get rid of all the low-end frequencies we don't need. Then I'll adjust the other frequencies of it to taste. There's a chance I'll dip around 300 hertz, but it really just depends on what it's sounding like. There's also a good chance that I'll want to take off some of the high end so that the vocals will fit better in the mix itself with all of the other instruments. Next up, I'll put some subtle compression on all of these to glue them together to the track. I'll keep the ratio fairly low, the attack medium slow, and the release slow as well. This will create a consistent volume out of all these chants and help them sit a little bit better in the mix. If you recorded some really dynamic voice parts here, you might need more compression, but for this example, as you can see, all of my levels are pretty much even as is. And then lastly, I'll add some spatial effects like delay and reverb to really sell this thing, reverb being the most important. I always recommend using the same reverb as you used on other instruments in the track to put this reverb into a space and to put these vocals and kind of blend them together with the rest of the track. For this project, we're just working on the chant, so I'll just choose something that sounds cool. And after all of that, we got ourselves a serious chant. Let's take a listen to the final product we've created. Well, that I've created and that you learned from.
Hey, let's go.
Pretty cool, right? Don't let your lonesome producer self get bogged down by your lack of choir. You can do it all by yourself. I know it. I just did it. If you like this video, you'll love a similar video I made that details how to create a full choir with just one voice. You can go watch it right up here.